Virtual reality is slowly breaking into the real world and breaking cultural chains. According to Texas A&M University, culture is a way of life of a group of people, the behaviors, beliefs, values, and symbols that they accept, generally without thinking about them, and that they are passed along by communication and imitation from one generation to the next. I think that word communication is especially important because today there are many modes of communication that culture may occur and grow through. From traditional face-to-face interactions with those around us, to call and text, to internet posts, and increasingly through virtual reality environments. Each tends to develop their own social norms and subcultures that begin to enter more mainstream societal or work-related cultures. So much so that my own university makes learning to write an appropriate email or work-related text a requirement for graduation. And my sales analyst work team at a Fortune 500 real estate management company regularly uses GIFs to communicate. In these cases, status quo is preserved with education, or changes to social norms and communication are minor. But virtual reality is still in the baby years of its development and has the potential to make a bigger impact as the technology grows. When virtual reality first came to market, only eye and handsets were available for basic gaming, but now there are full body trackers, expanded sensory feedback devices, and even full motion devices available to the public. Right now, you can go on eBay and buy a full motion virtual reality setup for $8,000 used. And while this is outside the price range of most people, it is becoming cheaper and increasingly more common. The technology is also becoming more and more like the real world, but with the added benefit of protection from consequences as a user is safe in their own home. They can break social norms through their uses of avatars to change into any appearance or simply through their actions. A chat room user could act out an obscene act on another user, or quote unquote, physically get up in someone's face to harass them without serious repercussions beyond a ban or being muted. No one is going to hurt or oppose that user because they can't. Insults are, of course, nothing new in an online environment, but what adds the potential to impact society is, as opposed to traditional internet harassment, in virtual reality, actual actions are acted out in a seemingly real environment rather than simply typed, meaning that the freedom from repercussions could be causing worse social behavior, with habits forming around that behavior relatively quickly. According to the medically reviewed website healthline.com, it can take anywhere from 18 to 254 days for a person to form a new habit, and an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic. So in as little as a few weeks or months, new online learned behaviors could manifest in reality, whether good or bad. It is also possible that users can be freed from social anxieties and potentially form better habits that could manifest in society because there are no repercussions or perceived repercussions to walking up to a person and striking a conversation. So how is virtual reality contributing to real-world social behavioral change, and how might we see or address a change as the technology becomes more pervasive? There are 4 factors we are going to look at when considering this question. What is a virtual reality space? How are they made and what is ingrained into them? How are people learning within them? And how does behavior in virtual reality differ from behavior in the real world? Often people consider space as something that is just there. It has no qualities or effects until someone comes along to do something in it or give it purpose. It is important to understand, however, that this is not true. Regardless of what is happening in a space, space is not just an empty container that we simply inhabit, but instead a social product rooted in shared values and socially produced meanings. The room itself has underlining meaning or purpose in addition to the social aspects, norms, and culture on the human level of those inside of them. For example, a football stadium is built with an inherent meaning that is vastly different from that of a Zen garden or a trail in the woods. A stadium is intended to provoke excitement, while the garden is intended to provoke peace, both without saying so directly. In the same way, a virtual reality chat room may have inherent purpose or meaning to a group inhabiting it, or from those who created it. Often, these created meanings are subtle. It was once pointed out to me that if you search for doctors on Google, it mostly returns males, and if you search for nurses, it mostly returns females. At one point in time, it was even true that searching for white girls returned mostly benign results, but searching for Black girls returned porn. Technology is considered neutral, and because of this, the beliefs injected into it are often normalized to those using it. Virtual reality is not immune to this effect. I mentioned earlier that the primary use for virtual reality is games, and often chat rooms themselves become an extension of gaming as a result. What is significant about this is that game development is a male-dominated industry, largely in part due to males being raised on games more frequently than females are. The result is a skewed outlook that goes unquestioned to those who it appeals to. Nick Yee writes in the Proteus Paradox, How Online Games and Virtual Worlds Change Us and How They Don't, that games are designed by male developers to be consumed by male audiences. They're technologically construed male fantasies in a very literal sense. The sexualized female avatars also encourage sexual harassment. Sexualization of females in games is normalized, even if only based on an avatar and especially to males. In virtual reality, this encouraged harassment can go beyond this harassment that is encouraged by the system itself, by those who are programming it, goes beyond simple words spoken on the couch or typed into chat and can actually be brought into an I'm here and doing this action that is practiced and possibly habit formed. Those watching this behavior are also inclined to replicate it as if it is positively received or goes without punishment due to the nature of social spaces. As humans, we engage in what is known as social learning theory, the study of learned behaviors through the observation, modeling, and imitating of new behaviors that are reinforced by other people, and which is also an aspect of the definition of culture. We mimic what others are doing or saying to fit into groups, often unaware that we are doing it. In virtual reality, one study showed that people engaged with others on a basis of avatar strangeness, finding that there is a happy medium, in our case, a strangeness rating of 4 out of 6, in our case, a strangeness rating of 4 out of 6. If an avatar was not strange enough, it did not cause conversation or interest, and if it was too strange, it was avoided. If it fell into the upper 66% range of strangeness, there were favorable interactions and a greater chance of mimicry. By simply choosing the correct avatar, a user's actions or ideas can have greater impact and better reception as others begin to subconsciously imitate them. But so what? It's still just a game. Environments and avatars are outlandish. It should be easy to separate that from reality. It turns out that is not the case, as another study found that participants made similar decisions in virtual reality and in real life. Initially, this may mean that social norms, culture, and behavior from the real world carry into virtual reality. But virtual reality is a new space of communication. Its own cultures grow, evolve, and take hold until they carry into the real world, because a lack of decision-making variation indicates a two-way street for learned behaviors. The first time I used virtual reality technology myself, I was shocked at how quickly my brain accepted the environment as being my reality. I was not using full motion, feedback devices, or even headphones, and the graphics themselves weren't high quality. My vision seemed fuzzy, and there was a gap between my nose and the headset that I could see out of, but none of that mattered. I stared out over a golden canyon with a shimmering river running through it from a wide stonework balcony in the desert, and had to constantly remind myself that I could not walk over to the edge or sit down in any of the chairs. In this space, I certainly did not have behave any differently than I normally would because it felt like reality. Once the awe of the homepage wore off, I loaded up a game called Beat Saber, where you slash blocks with lightsabers to a song in a Guitar Hero sort of manner. In this game, the homepage made me feel small, like I was standing underneath a neon billboard the size of a wide multi-story building. I also noticed that I felt excited and that my normal composure began to fade as I played the game. I'd make silly dancing movements or twirl my sabers because I felt there were just no expectations on me. And even though my physical body could be seen, I felt more myself, but also experienced feelings of power I do not normally have in other combat oriented games. A Star Wars training simulator, for example, allowed me to use sabers, blasters, and detonators to slay creatures and stormtroopers. Even though I'm not a violent person and felt like I was there, I was still receptive to the feeling and experience. It appeared to me that virtual reality had an incredible ability to influence and manipulate my emotions, which became even more apparent when I first attempted to enter a chat room. The system I was using had just updated and the program encountered an error, leaving me in a small black box the size of previously input boundaries. If I left the box, a black and white camera feed of my surroundings was given to me for safety purposes, I assume. But it made me feel as though I was not supposed to be there. I found myself returning to the box, even though it felt claustrophobic and induced anxiety, which an obviously odd behavior for myself. I did not like being in the box, but because being out of it felt wrong, I returned. Within the chat rooms themselves, I experienced and observed more odd behavior that deviated from what we would consider acceptable in society, with evidence of the sexual harassment my research indicates is encouraged. My very first time in one of these rooms, I'd entered as a carrot and was asked to get into the hand of an approximately 50-foot tall anime character known as Mount Lady from the anime My Hero Academia, if any of you know it. Wherein I was promptly brought to and moved around her posterior. My second time in one of these rooms, I immediately heard one user call another user a, quote, gay ass bitch, whilst getting in each other's faces. Listening to how other users talked, it seemed as though this behavior was only mitigated by concerns of being banned. The room these events occurred in also contained unspoken indications of encouraged behavior and purpose from its creator. The space was a small green island on a sunny day with a dock, 2 picnic tables, some foods, and large brown ducks walking around. There was no home screen, signs, or any other form of text that indicated functionality or suggestions to perform an action. And yet many people, myself included, chose to interact with the ducks. Some people pet the ducks and others went and led them around with available food items like bread and pears. The simple availability of the action was enough to invoke the behavior and make me consider attempting it in real life as well. Interacting with the animals was enjoyable within that space. Maybe it would be out in the real world as well. Some part of me wanted to go try it. Among user behaviors, I also noticed that, like in my research, people would congregate and interact with more unique or strange avatars. One user, for example, existed as a black dragon that slithered and twirled in the air. He had half the lobby following him. Another was simply a crab on the ground and had his own following because he stood out from all the humanoid avatars. These followings indicated to me favorability and gave them a temporary platform to speak that was often left unutilized. After which people would return to conversations with friends like we were in reality, or sought out avatars they thought could provide a funny interaction with their own. A fellow banana desired to hug me, and the dragon user wanted to act out eating me, to name a couple. In any case, the draw to avatars seemed to be a primary motivation for interactions. While conducting an interview of a user, my interview subject informed me that in some cases cults even formed around avatars. At one point in time, I quote him as saying, hordes of Ugandan knuckle avatars would swarm those unlike them and harass other avatars to change. I've since seen footage on YouTube of such occurrences myself. A charismatic person enters a space with a unique avatar. They act out a role with that avatar, and other users join in with the original acting as a leader. The draw to someone unique causes behavioral changes as the audience listens to that someone. While my subject did not participate in such an occurrence, when asked if he felt more or less true to his real self in virtual reality, he responded, more, because there's less anxiety about stating opinions and no one can have an effect on you. And under pressure, you can simply leave. So although harassment or behavioral changes are any game or conditional upon what others are around you to offer the opportunity, you feel more like you than usual. A person is drawn to others in new ways, chooses to participate in an action, and may learn something different is okay while habit forming around it. The habits and ideas that users form in virtual reality come to daylight and change social norms in a variety of ways. Users are allowed the freedom to become unrepressed in both action and idea, largely without repercussions, for better or for worse. This draws to the surface behavior such as harassment, both sexual and non-sexual, sexual vulgarity, and extreme points of view, because the option to do so and exists in a way it normally would not. Possibility of bans still exists, of course, but is a light slap on the wrist compared to a punch in the face or an arrest one might face in real life. Some users take advantage of this fact the way other users take advantage of the ability to lead a duck or be anything they like via their avatars. Avatars then allow ideas or behaviors to have a platform when users are drawn to them based on the quality of their avatar. Though those who have called it an attraction to strangeness are not wrong. However, I believe the word interesting is more fitting. Users are drawn to interesting interactions provided by avatars, like hugging a carrot brother or a Ugandan Knuckles character with extreme positions, because it is interesting to see or interact with. Mimicry then occurs subconsciously when verbal abuse is made okay by someone silly saying it, and consciously when users purposely change their avatars to match a group or be a part of something they found fun. My interview subject found that conversations were funny things you wouldn't say in real life, like obscene or sexual remarks, especially when an avatar might incite such things. Platforms allow ideas and behavior to take root, but the call of the forbidden and inherent aspects of games stemming from who makes and produces them ensure they are usually negative. Virtual spaces themselves are also a type of platform with purpose, much the way real ones are, and viewpoints are injected into those spaces. Purpose may be to feed the ducks at pond, to have debates in a courtroom, or someone may create a private space that encourages the harm of a group with subtle environmental suggestion. Viewpoints are coded into technology, even when not explicitly stated, and offer subtle suggestion to perform and learn behaviors and ideas. This also extends to avatars. Female avatars are often hot or busty, designed to appeal to males, and are the subject of sexual harassment that becomes normalized as funny, in part due to the male viewpoints in the gaming industry, and in part due to the ability to behave in an unrestricted manner. I experienced this in my very first virtual reality interaction as a simple carrot. This effect gives those who create spaces and avatars incredible power to manipulate and influence your ideas and emotions, because inside virtual reality, a user feels what they are experiencing is real, even with limited technology. My living room became the desert, and in-game hands became my own. You can be made to feel trapped, small, free, more like yourself, excited, or any other conditional emotion based on the space. I even felt powerful killing what seemed to be real creatures, and would likely go to do so again. As the technology grows more mainstream, false information can be made to feel even more credible, and responses to scenarios can be increasingly conditioned, because decision-making does not vary significantly between virtual reality and reality. Responding to someone's ideas or actions with cursing and violence is a decision, and a decision that can be learned and practiced into second nature at the average rate of 66 days. The lack of decision-making difference provides virtual reality behavior with all the ability it needs to move into reality, the way the girl from The Ring crawls out of a screen. To this day, I feel inclined to interact with ducks more. Others may have benign desires or behavioral changes as well. Some, like my interview subject, use virtual reality to overcome social anxieties. But at the same time, other users begin to behave worse towards women, become more verbally abusive towards others, reduce their personal space, and behave in less formal or respectful manners to those around them. Society should address this issue, because worsened social behavior increases social tensions and often occurs along group lines such as gender or race. These tensions then weaken a society with division, and on some level contribute to its decline. Even less formal behavior may cause stress in public, social, or workspaces, as individual tolerance for such things can vary greatly. Transitioning to hug greetings unfelt in virtual reality would likely cause problems for all those involved in the real world. Those uncomfortable with it may choose to leave a space, or those giving them may be asked to leave themselves. As virtual reality becomes more common, hug greetings could also simply become a new normal. The future of the technology's impact is uncertain while it grows. However, some immediate mitigation should be put into place by both creators and users. Creators should always examine their work and the work of their peers for unconscious biases and implications. Attempt to experience what has been created through others' eyes, and test experiences with a wide range of user demographics for varied input on what aspects of a game cause or invoke certain things. In the case of multi-user experiences, moderation and an examination of what is hosted on servers is important to ensure hosted content does not violate a code of ethics within your company. On an individual level, report or call out those who harass others where possible. Make conscious efforts to ignore such behavior with mute or block features. Mitigate habit forming with limited use time. Virtual reality is an incredible technology with potential to help many people learn. Some have implemented interactive environments in museums. Others are using it to do risk-free training on doctors. And still others have experimented with reducing business costs in the design phase by virtually building a product. At the moment, however, it is also contributing to cultural and social behavioral change, often for the worse, because it is largely allowed within virtual reality and easily brought into the real world because of the lack of differentiation between virtual reality and reality.